All right, welcome everybody. We're ready to rock and roll here. We got Matt Freedman. Dude, it seems like we've known each other for years here, but excited to have Matt on. We're going to be talking about this idea of broadcast or be forgotten, how AI is rewriting kind of content and brand and GTM. So, Matt, excited to jump in. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Man.
this will be good. So when did we first meet, dude? It was it's been 5 years, probably 6 years.
Yeah,
5 years.
2009 maybe, when you joined Customer. I was like the overly hyper sales guy that
Yes.
on your door sharing podcasts and trying to help.
Like, I want to run marketing, and I'm like, I run marketing. And the sales leader loved that you wanted to be involved in marketing, right? But Matt is by day he's a content AI expert. By night he's a rock and roll. I mean, if you haven't seen his Instagram, this guy, I can't believe you haven't hit it big. I mean, you've hit it big, but I can't believe you haven't hit it like big. What's the latest in Nashville?
Yeah, we've done some cool stuff, man. I've been a musician for 20 years, so it's always been like a moonlight project. And over the past 5, just seems like we play country music, so country sort of became widely adopted and more mass marketed. So we still do some tours, and we had a cool show last night. So cool, done stuff with Jelly Roll, Miranda Lambert, and some others. But it's a passion. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's all it's been hard to integrate those two worlds together, but I feel like finally at 40 years old, I figured it.
It's getting closer. Well, man, that's funny. I think that's why you and I always thought I was meant to be an actor or a musician, and somehow I got stuck in like tech. I think you and I share a little bit of that.
You're kind of the Matthew McConaughey of tech. You could say that.
Oh man. Well, hey, let's dive into that story. I think it all kind of relates, but tell us a little bit about the background, what you've been up to. You obviously talked a little bit about the musician and how that's maybe starting to feed into kind of this unified kind of mission for you. But ultimately, you've kind of landed at Rhythm, and you're doing some cool stuff there. So tell us a little bit about what's going on and what Rhythm.
Yeah, so I founded Rhythm really at the intersection of two things. One, again, like you had mentioned, building a personal brand for me as a musician was a really important thing, like a way for me as a creative outlet at the outset. But I realized quickly that anyone who's building something for themselves personally as a creative, whether it's a podcast, a band, whatever, the content is a big part of it, but the marketing and the promotion and all the visibility in the content is such an important factor. So I was just trying to get a final number, but it was close to about $250,000 over the past 5 years on content creation and building a music brand, for us. And the net of that is that I've learned and failed a lot with my own dollars investing into it. And I've tried just about everything. And I know you're like this, just trying stuff to see what sticks. Yeah. And, we have built a really cool thing on the music side, something unique and something I'm really proud of. And over the years, people would ask, like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you getting these shows? Who's shooting your content? Who's doing your posting for you? And, I started to sort of, keep receipts on that. And over time, I was like, you know what? If I was ever to make the jump back to entrepreneurship again, that seems to be what I know best and what I've invested in myself. The failures I've had, the learnings I've had, the platforms I know, the relationships. So, we set out to do this and help entrepreneurs, founders, and startups build that content engine. Cool. We leverage AI to waterfall and scale content for brands. So
yeah, look, that's super cool to hear the story. And I think that is, like I said, a little bit of a joke, but even when I met you, way back when, it was clear, you do things with a brand first mentality, whether it was sales, marketing, SaaS, AI, like, that's always just been you and I think that probably came from some of the music and some of the challenges you went, the ups and downs went through there. I want to dive into this content. You mentioned the waterfall, and that's something you've kind of been talking about, this waterfalling content. And how brands and companies can kind of start to piece that together. I want to get into some of these lessons learned. So what is it and why is it important?
Yeah, it's a great question. So waterfalling content is a relatively new concept. I certainly can't take credit for it, but it's
man, I do that all the time. I'm all about freaking. I've been taking credit for so many things. So I credit Matt. Waterfalling content, trademark. Go.
Done. All right, sounds good. Yeah. So really, the concept started about 9 months ago. I started running, all the content and the brand for a personal friend of mine and a successful entrepreneur named Lance Bachman in the home services space at LB Capital. So
I mean, dude, you're like maybe just 10 seconds. I mean, this guy and what you guys accomplished. I mean, it's This isn't so, I mean, the space is a little more niche, right? So it's not Gary Vee, for example, but
Yep.
what he's done, what you guys accomplished in home services. I mean, this guy is almost the Gary Vee of home services, maybe. I mean, huge
It's
brand,
not a
multiple
yeah.
exits, very successful.
It's not a bad comparison. And thank you to Signals, as a partner of ours, we leveraged, the AI agent Connie that we built for the conference to sell tickets. And so you guys were a big part of that growth. But really what we did with Lance has a very unique story. He sold his first digital marketing company that was an agency for 30, 40 million bucks and wrapped a lot of that, that money back into buying home service companies, roofing companies, HVAC, plumbing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And his playbook was he would buy them at an undervalued sort of like, hey, we're stuck here. We can't scale past 5 million bucks. He has this unbelievable team of executors, sales, marketing, finance, ops that they plug in. And in 18 months, he can take a $0, and he did this, a company from $0 in sales to 25 million in sales in roofing, sell the company for 40, everyone gets paid, and it's just rinse and repeat. And he's done this 7 times now in the past 2.5 years for about 150 million bucks. So the content waterfall approach, he approached me in December of last year at a conference and said, the bigger my brand gets, the more deal flow comes to me where I don't have to seek out the next best roofing companies. We were like, all right, you have 5,000, subscribers on social media, not a huge brand. We have to like 50 to 100x the output of content, where he was doing maybe, 3 to 5 posts a week. And we turned that into doing almost 300 a month.
What? On a variety of channels. There's a variety of channels, I assume.
Across all channels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So, in the output of that, we took him from about 5,000 subscribers on Instagram to about 85,000, all organic. We weren't purchasing. There were no bot farms. We put out about 1,600 videos on YouTube. So as YouTube exploded. And the method that we took was I built an AI platform that we call Waterfall. I'll send it out to anyone who subscribes to this, but we basically built a platform that takes a YouTube video link, plugs it in, and it waterfalls up to 25 different pieces of content from the transcript of the YouTube video. So for us, it's just a starter to say like, hey, here's 10 LinkedIn posts, tweets, playbooks, SEO blog posts for Reddit, thought starters for a GPT. So the AI can now automate, if personal brand growth, if you're someone listening out there, there are ways to take one individual piece of content and waterfall it so that you have consistent posts going out every day.
And look, this is as a content producer myself, we're all like, what you just described is the dream, and the numbers are bonkers. The question obviously on everyone's mind, including myself, is, how do you do it? Because there is this, I get caught up in the FOMO on LinkedIn sometimes. I closed 1 trillion deals I wrote 500 Amazon bestsellers via AI. And I'm like, what? How come they can write a bestseller in a day and I can't? But in reality, like, what are you seeing? Like, how do you actually put some of this into play then, in a way that keeps and I'm thinking selfishly here, obviously, but I think a lot of people they want to find the balance of automation and personalization. Like, you don't want it to just come off as a bot, right? And you don't want to spend 5 hours writing 2 paragraphs that's so thoughtful and good. And how do you put this waterfall into play?
It's a great question. Yeah, we don't, to your point, we would never take something that AI generated and just post it. Yep. We use it as a thought starter and more to test and reconfigure and calibrate the AI itself. So if it pumps out something from a YouTube transcript, which is verbatim, so that's helpful. We'll tweak it, but it'll be a good thought starter for us. And then we can take those concepts, work it, sit with Lance and be like, hey, are you okay with this? What do you think? Do you want to expand? So if nothing else, it gave us the insight or the thought starter for that day or for that hour to be able to generate content from.
And that was a big one. So you would start with him pretty raw, like a YouTube type thing. And then that would be the so to say, the top of the waterfall. And then from there, you'd get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, we, for Lance specifically, we had cameras on him 10 to 12 hours a day, every day. So every Zoom call he had, every meeting he has. This is obviously an extreme case where if you wanted hyper scale and build a personal brand, the investment has to be time and money. So 12 hours of his day every day was filming behind the scenes B-roll content, moments from his calls, him walking into a meeting. So that's the extreme case. For someone who's out there listening saying, hey, I just got to get like, 5 to 6 posts a week done just to build my brand. There's definitely a pared down version of that that's more realistic for you to execute. The question that we asked Lance,
but that intensity, just so I'm understanding it, it was, yeah, because a lot of us are like crawl steps. So it's like, hey, let's start posting once a week, 3 times a week type of thing. But what you just explained was, yeah, like you did it was like the Gary V call. I mean, it was Zoom calls, meetings, and you had that type of content then ready and available. And then from there, you could really start to bridge that waterfall gap and take that and multi-purpose it into just a variety of things. Got it.
Yeah, you just work backwards from the outcome that you're trying to drive. With Lance, again, think Alex Hormozy was sort of the godfather of this in a lot of ways. And he owns acquisition.com, and his whole platform is free value-add edutainment business content. And YouTube is really his lead magnet. Yeah. He gives everything away for free. But he runs coaching groups, mastermind programs, and he wants companies to come to him so he can acquire them at a value rate, grow it, and sell it. So very similar to Lance. The thing that we wanted to do with Lance was not only bring deal flow, but also we wanted to create a coaching group and like a mentor stack that we could offer and have people come in and subscribe to.
Sure.
And this, we've been really public about it, and because we were damn proud of it. We took a concept in March and said, let's build a coaching group and sort of kind of promote it to like friends and family to see who wants in. And, within 10 days, we grew his coaching group, to over a $3 million a year product.
But the idea, content. Yeah, but the idea is, again, that top of funnel was so value driven, kind of like you were saying. Besides Lance, who was the other guy you were saying? What was his name?
I think Alex Hormozy.
Sorry.
He does about the best job of any, I think.
But the idea was he didn't actually charge. So you mentioned like so much value up top that people were enthralled by it. They were taken in by it. YouTube, I guess, you mentioned his channel was choice. But once that concept, that brand, but it sounds like the intensity of that top of funnel content, at least for the worlds you were playing in, wasn't like a once a week type thing. I mean, it was like the Gary V type of thing. But once you got that base, you had so many people there, it then became so much easier to kind of coaching, courses, but because you had them in the net, so to say.
Yeah, the philosophy is, and you're great at this. You have a huge LinkedIn following, and you're a platform voice. And the thought is, when you get to that level, and with Lance, it was like there doesn't have to be any secrets. Like there doesn't have to be a gap between you and this walled off paid content.
Yeah,
it's like, just especially with AI, people can get quick answers to things and quick strategy or a quick anecdote from ChatGPT. So it's not like you're competing with that, but why not be authentically genuine in the amount of value that you can put out there and share it with the world? And you'll attract the people in your orbit that are going to subscribe to that naturally.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Wow, man. Look, I'm this is good. This is probably good for me to hear. I'm sure the audience will love it. What do you, so go one step just further into the kind of the waterfall. So I think conceptually I get it, but how do you take it from there? Because now you maybe do have, let's say, because I love the idea of using what you already have. So some of these leaders, are on Zoom calls or they're in meetings, and maybe let's say they grab some of that content, but how do you actually take that and get it into a position of social? Is it the tool set? Is it a staff? Is it how do you take that and then waterfall it out?
Yeah, we just, it's a good question. We just put out a study, I think about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, just called the 2025 cost of content. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at executing truly a good modern content stack, there's really 3 different ways to approach it. You can have the in-house team, which can be very expensive, which we invested in, mm-hmm. very time and labor intensive, but you can get extreme results like we did. Yeah. So that's for probably the extreme practitioner who wants to go whole hog on this thing.
Yeah.
The second sort of middle version is an agency that you can hire, and send like, hey, there's a podcast agency. I have a social agency. I have a, hack together 4 or 5 different outsourced companies to do it.
I mean, that's what a lot of, I think, people go, and I've played that game, and those 2 options are fairly tough. The first one is expensive and the second one's expensive, and it feels like you said, it's stacky. I kind of got a podcast. I kind of got a multiple together, or if you're going to go for one agency, man, That's just tough. Anything else you got? Because I don't like those options.
The last is just doing the freelance route, and this is where you can do it. You look at, good, fast, and cheap. This is the cheap option. So you can do it really quick on Fiverr or Upwork. You can find people to ghostwrite, to edit your podcast. But then is that person talking to your email copywriter? Is that copywriter talking to your marketing team with social posts? So, that's why I founded Rhythm is, not to be salesy, but this is the problem that we solve is people that really want to grow and expand and scale content in a very cohesive, streamlined way. That's what we do because we can orchestrate and execute end to end with all of that. So in a cohesive way.
I love it. I love it, man. It's a great talk track. It's certainly needed. And in this idea of brand is the new demand is, I think it was obviously the B2C world. Some of these, more micro businesses, I think have started to pick it up. B2B SaaS is, I think, always, a little slower to the game. I always say B2B is about 10 years behind B2C. And I think this is a place that they have been very true to form on that, the influencer, the brand type of stuff. But it feels like it's coming as you kind of think about getting going in this world, like what are the advice pieces where you're like, obviously, to your point, you can work with a company like Rhythm, you can work with, you can hire 3 or 4 people, but a lot of us aren't there. We are just like, I've committed, Matt, to post on LinkedIn. How do you kind of start down this path to get going? Is there certain tools? Is there, just the baby steps? Give us some of that so this audience can get cracking. Because if you're ready for the Matts of the world, by dang it, get going. But I think a lot of people are just kind of in the early stage and they're trying to kind of get their feet wet. Where do you go?
Yeah, sure thing. We'll pass around some resources that we've published, publicly. We have one called the 7 Steps to a 7-Figure Personal Brand. It literally breaks down what I've done for not only Lance, but myself with all the, failed investments and the crazy amounts of money I've spent. But, the 3 core pillars, the first thing is authenticity. And there's an amazing stat that's in the playbook that we've pulled from 3 or 4 different resources. But 86% of consumers need to see trust or have to establish trust before they make a buying decision. 80% of those people feel like authenticity is the most important key factor to establish trust. Yeah. And 65% of those people don't think that most brands do authenticity and trust well. So there is a massive gap still between brands where the consumer wants the brand to be versus how authentic do they feel that a brand truly is. So the authenticity gap right now is a massive problem.
It's so if you're starting out, I love that. Yeah.
Just some questions to ask yourself is like, hey, what are you trying to gain? What's the objective from putting content out? Like money and revenue is obvious. Everyone wants brand growth, but the worst thing you can do is come out of the gate starting to sell stuff. And right? Like how many brands do you see are just like offer this, promotion this, 20% off this, we did this. Nobody cares about your product. I promise you. No one cares. They want to see, the human side, the raw element, the B-roll, the non-glamorous, not flashy stuff.
Yeah.
That sells your story for you. You're really good at that. Talking authentically and
I appreciate, man, but it's a learned, you kind of learn it because, I think our natural inclination, especially as founders or leaders, is you're like, I want to, you love your product, you love what you're doing. And so, you're just like, man, I buy my crap. But, and actually AI isn't helping it in a lot of ways. I mean, I think people are starting to realize, obviously, okay, maybe I shouldn't just schlep my product. So that's probably given. But the next step down in some of these AI posts you see that are obviously come off pretty, maybe a little too polished, a little too formal, a little too, not just your word, authentic. Maybe they're not pushing their product, but they feel very, it's fun. It's hard. I feel like that first level, like not just pitching your product. I think a lot of people got it. It's the next level down. There's these different levels. Maybe you got this in your mind of like levels of authenticity, or maybe you need to publish this, but I feel like people need to move down kind of like that value track. And it gets really, and some brands probably shouldn't go all the way down but it gets very blurry in there. And I think people think they're doing it, but man, you read the posts and it feels vanilla. It feels AI. It feels fairly, nah. And I don't know. It's kind of hard. I'm sorry. I'm trying to articulate, but it's hard to get to that raw. I love that word raw. I love the word authentic, and it takes practice. And someone like myself, and I'm not saying I wish I was Lance. I wish did have a brand, but if anybody thinks I do, it's like practice, because you really got to kind of, like, to Matt's point, like, take the blinders off, go real, and be like, how do I really feel about this shit?
That's the authenticity piece that leads to authority. That's the bridge that you have to think about trying to gap. How do I lead with authenticity that the outcome will be eventually authority? And you've gotten there. I wouldn't count you out of that. I think the thing that people need to realize too, AI makes things so easy right now. Like, it's so easy to just have ChatGPT prompt, pump out a LinkedIn post and have something really inauthentic and just kind of generic and vanilla, to your point. I'm a musician and I have a songwriter's background.
Oh yeah, and that's a great example. Yeah, like
for me, the philosophy is, like, over obsess and over invest in the thought and the value that you can bring with your own IP. Yeah. Use AI to scale and amplify the execution side of it once you have the concept and the idea really crafted and authentic to you.
Yeah.
Don't let AI steal your authenticity or become your authenticity.
Yeah.
Use it for the amplification.
That's a great piece of advice, because we're giving too much of it almost is. Someone said the other day, how to use whatever some LM, I'm like, it actually has almost made it harder, because I wrestle with these things. The songwriting is a perfect example. I'm not a musician, but I can imagine if I was. You don't just sit down and you can't just transfer it over. Like, for hundreds of years, you have to, like, you play it, you get the words, you then wrestle with it, you kind of sleep on it, you come back, you kind of massage it, you could try a little different. Maybe I go this direction, I didn't like that direction. And what that's created for me is a brainstorm partner in an LLM, that I almost feel like it was easier before. I could just kind of, like, spit out a thought and go. But now I'm like, I wrestle with it way more. And to your point, I actually think the result is much better, but the process is actually, for me, been harder in that sense of, like, really trying to, like, get to the right words in a way that almost feels like a song than it does just to slap it up on Instagram posts. So I appreciate that. Anyways, Matt, wow. Well, super relevant, I think, piece at the moment. So many companies struggling to drive value, to drive demand, to get sales. And these old playbooks, of throwing money at Google aren't working as well. The old playbook, I know it's generic, but this brand playbook, which I think people are kind of picking up, but knowing how to do it, they just don't know how to do it. So anyways, super valuable advice. Appreciate the time. For the audience, have a fantastic day.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe.